What's going on, guys? All right, let's talk about Vinland Saga chapter 205. First of all, very sorry for the poor quality of this video. I am recording off of my phone right now because there's a giant tree in my backyard that is currently getting cut down by numerous chainsaws, and it's very loud. And if I tried to record at my computer desk, that's probably all you would hear, along with the reverberations of the truck outside. So I just figured I would record in here. Instead, you might actually still hear chainsaws in the background, so that's just going to be what it is today. I could have waited till tomorrow to record this video, but I was very, very pumped for this chapter, most particularly because of the cliffhanger of the last chapter, and I knew that it came out in Japanese last week. It took the translators a while to get the English translation out, and I definitely give all credit to them. Thank you so much for doing it once again. And I didn't want to look at the raws. I didn't want to read pages out of order. I really wanted to wait until the full English translation was out so that I could read the entire chapter authentically and get a feel for what's happening in the story. So yeah, thank you guys, appreciate it. And it was worth the wait. This chapter was, it didn't go down quite the way that I thought it would, but I think there is a lot of stuff here. There's a lot of stuff to dig into. I just read it. I read it twice over on my computer, so it's been a little bit, it's fresh in my mind. I don't have the pages in front of me right now, so I can't like quote exact lines or anything, but let's talk about the general ideas and concepts of what's happening within this chapter and how it relates to the full Vinland Saga story that we've been reading ever since the very beginning. Now, I think the biggest thing here is to understand that a lot of Vinland Saga is based off of actual history, although it's a very fictionalized version of it, very heavily fictionalized version of it. But there was the Thorfinn that sailed across the sea, started a settlement in Vinland, and was eventually driven away. That's not spoilers, that's just history, or perhaps that is spoilers a little bit, but that is kind of the destiny or the fate of what's about to happen. Now, that doesn't mean that Yukimura can't change history with all of his intent, you know, with what he wants to do with the story, or shift things, or maybe take the ideas of history and, you know, manipulate them a little bit so they're still technically true, but not everything is true, right? So here we're in a situation where we know as the audience that Vinland, or the village of our need, the society that Thorfinn is trying to create, ultimately will not work. And we know this because we live in the year 2023, right? So we know that Thorfinn is destined for failure in some way, but it's also how we define that word failure and what that means. I was talking in a live stream recently about Vinland Saga in general and the direction that it has taken Thorfinn's character. And I think that one of the things that's the most compelling about it to me as just a reader, as a fan, and why I love this series so much and why I love Thorfinn so much as a character might be it might be because I know that he doesn't fully succeed. It might be because he's the underdog. It might be because he is in juxtaposition of the entire world around him, is that he is trying to do something different. He's breaking out from the norm. He is attempting to do something that's never been done before, and he's pushing the ideals of his father that much further. There's a lot of big emphasis in the story of Vinland Saga about lineage, and of course, like that time period in history, you know, it's why everybody introduces themselves of, I am so-and-so, son of so-and-so. You know, it's very, like, lineage is very important, your name, your legacy, it's all very, very important. And I think that one of the things as parents and fathers is that you want to take all of the harsh lessons that you learned in life, pass them down to your child so they don't have to experience the same pain. But what is ultimately going to happen is that everybody goes through pain, everybody goes through turmoil, and everyone's going to face, you know, challenges that are way beyond what they're prepared for. But it's that kind of evolution of things getting a little bit farther each way. And I look at this chapter, particularly the scene where Thorfinn thinks about Gudrid being pregnant, particularly the fact that Gudrid seemingly has just gone into labor and Thorfinn's child is about to be born, his blood, his kin. You know, I know he has Carly, but this is going to be his actual first flesh and blood, you know, child from him. So I think about all these things. I think about legacy. I think about fathers and sons. I think about the generational impact. And I think that this is why this chapter works so perfectly, because sorry, my thoughts are scattered. I'm trying to get them one by one. Let's start with what I want to talk about when it comes to Thorfinn. Now, Thorfinn's father, had very similar ideals as Thorfinn, but he didn't take them as far as Thorfinn did. And that's kind of my point here, is that, you know, Thor's decided to stop being the warrior that he was. He decided to settle somewhere. He decided to have a family. He decided to disassociate himself from all of that darkness. Thorfinn has practically done the same thing, except he's taking it that much further, where he's trying to create an entire new civilization, a new society without war and slavery, and try to push it as far as he can to not bring weapons there, to not incite violence, to not even have the allure of violence, to not have the weapons there to, make people think that, oh, someday I get to use this, to not even have it be a thing, to try to solve every single situation and diffuse the situation before it has to reach that ultimate, last resort. And that's what he's always called violence ever since the slave arc. He calls it the last resort, right? So he's going to do everything he possibly can to not have that happen. And he's going against the culture. He's going against the ideals of humanity in general. He's going against what we know as actual history, because war is still very, very prevalent today. So when I look at Thorfinn and his decisions, I see him taking what his father had done and going beyond it. And then I think about the hope for the next generation. And I think that that's what everybody has, is this hope for the next generation. And he's thinking about his child and what his child may accomplish beyond him. So when Thorfinn says that, yes, we will leave Vinland, he's thinking about so many things. He's thinking about his father, but he's thinking about his family. He's thinking about his legacy. He's thinking about his child and what is going to mean for him. Right? Because now, he has the responsibility. Obviously, he's the leader of the group, but whatever decision he makes is going to affect not just him, but the group, but specifically his family, his loved ones, right? And he is thinking that if war happens here, if a battle happens here, and even if they win, even if they win the first couple of fights, that is going to start a chain reaction that is going to propel war into both societies of the natives and the Norse. It's going to take it down to the next generation, and it's going to create the same chaos that has been created before. If they die, his son could be born, find out that his father was killed by the natives, grow up wanting revenge, and enter into the same situation that Thorfinn was in before. So he's thinking about all these things. But also, Thorfinn did come so far. He pushed the boundaries so ridiculously beyond what anybody thought was possible, and he did so much. I think this is another really important lesson of life in general too, is that you might not succeed in the things that you set out to do, but by trying to accomplish them, by trying to put yourself out there in the universe and try to create something, it creates sort of like this ripple effect that maybe you didn't get the thing that you thought you were going to get, but so many other things happened in the meantime, right? And if Thorfinn can take this idea that his father had and push it this far, then how far could Thorfinn's child potentially push it? And I don't even mean like literally his child. I mean like the next generation. What are people going to take from the lessons that Thorfinn created by trying to make Vinland and trying to make the village of our need, right? I think it's a very powerful thing. I think Vinland Saga has always been, not the overall theme, but I think that there's always been a theme there between fathers and sons. One of my favorite scenes is with Sigurd and Halfdan. When Sigurd goes off to forge his own path, and Halfdan wanted him to do what he wanted, but he went and did something different, but did it based on his own ideals and convictions and what he believed was right, and Halfdan was still proud of him. There's even father-son dynamics between Thorfinn and Askeladd, right? And Thorfinn and Leif Erikson, and there's a lot of that here. You have Hild and her father and her father's death and how that impacted her. And her also, Hild is here, armed, ready to go, hiding in the bushes, and she sees Thorfinn's decision, and it even, I think it even, what's the word I'm looking for? It confirms even further that Thorfinn is the guy that he says he is, because beginning their relationship, Hild was like, if you falter, if you fall back into this shit, I'm gonna kill you, and even though she's given that up, she can still see that Thorfinn is that guy. He's gonna do this. Now, the downside to this, right, and this is where chaos will ensue, is if Thorfinn is just deciding to leave, if he's deciding that the only way to avoid war is to just simply leave Vinland, he might understand what he's doing, and he's thinking about his child, and he's thinking about what it would mean for their society, but there's still everybody else to convince. And people are not necessarily quite on board with Thorfinn right now. And to come here, to spend a year, 2 years, however long they've been here, create everything they've done, chop down the trees, till the land, plant the food, create the technology they have, everything they've done, to just say, oh, well, we're going back home. I don't think that's going to fly in the face of the society. Especially you have Stark there and, everybody, that whole crew. And if they mention what Hild did, that could turn them against Thorfinn even more. So that could happen. And then on the side of the natives, you have, all these tribes here that are ready to fight. They're ready to throw down. And the one guy says at the end of the chapter, well, they're all here ready to fight. If we tell them that they're just going away. And that's the problem too, is because you have the problem of communication, because they don't speak the same language, and their interpreters are Bug Eyes and Nisqualji. They have a little moment this chapter too, which was cute. But Nisqualji is very, very sick. I don't know if she's going to survive, so that would suck. And also, if you get rid of the interpreters, then you could say, what Thorfinn is saying, Thorfinn believes and is true, but the natives don't understand what he's saying. So there could be miscommunication here that could screw everything up also. I also don't think it's a mistake that Gudrid is going to go into labor at the same time that Thorfinn, Einar, and Bug Eyes are in this extremely dangerous situation. There's a parallel happening here. I mean, it's pretty obvious, death and birth. You know what I mean? It's pretty obvious something could go down here, and we'll have a parallel about that. Also, Thorfinn having a newborn, that's going to throw a wrench into things. As far as them gathering their shit and wanting to leave, it's going to need a lot of attention. Gudrid's going to need to recover. This is just the complications of life. And that's what I think that, Vinland Saga has always been about. It's just a story about people. And Yukimura, he's a great writer, I think, because he never paints things in black and white. Despite the pacifism that comes through in his writing, and despite his ideals, he never paints things in black and white. Every character has a reason for doing what they're doing. If you can look at a character's perspective and understand, and I think that's one of the best things about it. So from this point forward, I think that something is going to go terribly wrong at this negotiation. I think Thorfinn's made his choice, and he's proved what kind of man he is. But that does not mean they're out of the water, out of the woods yet. Literally, they're in the woods. But they're not out of the woods yet. And the scene is not over. Thorfinn may have made a choice, but the scene is not over. So, paralleling that with the birth of Thorfinn's child, I still expect things to go terribly awry. But I respect Thorfinn, and I respect the story of hope. I respect the story of hope in Vinland Saga. And I think that's the thing, is that we know Thorfinn does not succeed, but that's what makes me root for him so much. I just always root for the underdogs. I always root for people that are going against what the world and society and everything is telling them. It's just I believe this is right. But, I guess you do have to be willing to die for your convictions, right? I don't know. Anyways, let me know what you guys thought of this chapter. I thought it was great. Again, I apologize for recording this on my phone, but I just figured I'd get the review out today because I'm excited about it. And I'll let you know, some people, they find my reviews and they're like, I didn't even know the chapter was out. Well, the chapter's out. I just spoiled it for you, but chapter's out. All right, guys, let me know if you like this video and review. Thumbs it up, leave a comment. That'll help it in the algorithm. Other than that, guys, really appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you next month with another chapter.